This is Tim.
And this is Adam.
And this is Critiquing Comics. Welcome to Critiquing Comics. This is Tim in Tokyo with Adam in Nagoya. How you doing?
I'm doing all right, Tim. How are you?
Okay. School is starting, so that's kind of annoying. I'd like summer vacation, but...
See, whenever I come on the show, you always ask me how I am, and I have to quickly think for an answer. So this time I just deflected it right back at you. It was my
how am I?
There.
All right. So we've again been sent comics from David Dye. We've talked about his comics a number of times, usually with Mulele. The last time I'd forgotten, I checked, it was Jason last time, when we talked about Amazing Tales number 4, which was more of a horror type issue. He's been playing a lot with the tone of his comics lately, because they used to be more humor based, but then he's been going off in other directions.
Well, this one still seems like it has a lot of... It's basically humorous, but kind of like an homage to all different types of old kind of 50s pulp is the kind of feeling I got from it.
I guess. Well, I don't know. So, yeah, this is Amazing Tales 5, and much of the issue is a war story called Souvenir, and I was kind of surprised at how brutal it kind of got, because usually David hasn't gone that far in that direction, but we've got some terrorists who really terrorize a farm family. It's off panel, but the mother and the daughter are raped, and then all three of them are beheaded, and we see the heads on the ground. I was a little traumatized after I read that.
That's very true, but at the same time, it still has kind of like a Mad Magazine kind of humor sense to it, because isn't one of the leaders of the terrorist organization named Bladder Smear Putin or something like that?
Mm-hmm.
It's so it has a very kind of National Lampoon's kind of feel to it to me. Or, when any of those kind of, I guess, humor magazines, I'm sure every country has their own. But so I feel like it has a lot of humor along with it, but yeah, you're right. It did have kind of some shocking violence, and I was surprised. I thought the entire comic book was going to be that kind of war. I thought that war story was the full thing, the whole comic book. So I didn't know it was kind of a bunch of short stories.
Yeah, that's what Amazing Tales books generally are. They're kind of an anthology comic done by one guy.
Okay. Yeah.
So there'll be different stories in it. Now, for some reason in this one, he does part one of the story, and then he goes to something else, and then he comes back to this one. I'm not sure if that was an issue of printing, because I think the story in between is color, but the bushfire story.
You're right, yeah. I hadn't thought about that. Yeah.
So maybe that must have been a printing issue, so to have the bushfire in the middle.
Right, as kind of like the, whatever you call that when you do the... What is that even called? I forgot. But yeah, when you have the color pages in the middle, there's a term for this. Anyway.
And Bushfire, I had actually seen before, because some time ago... So we've had this Dropbox folder that he had shared with us, and that story ended up in the Dropbox folder, and then it turned out that he... didn't know it was there, and he was kind of surprised when we talked about it on the podcast, because he didn't think he'd send it to us. So yeah, that was in Critiquing Comics 175 back in 2020 with Mulele.
That makes sense time-wise, because when I saw this comic, I thought initially, I wonder if this is from the big bushfires that were right there towards the beginning of the pandemic. And it kind of had that feel to it. And when I saw the back cover, there is something that says it's a comic that was intended for a charity anthology, I think, and it didn't get printed or something. So
oh yeah,
maybe he was trying to submit it to the anthology.
In this issue, finally in print, the story of Bushfire that was not printed in the charity anthology. Also, the Dropship 15 team. So, yeah, that set of soldiers we see in every issue, even though they've been in humor stories and horror stories and now in a regular war story.
Okay.
Yeah, okay. So, yeah, this Bushfire story has been around a while, and I don't know why it didn't end up in the charity anthology, but...
Yeah, it's kind of strange, and it's tonally it doesn't quite fit this collection because all the rest...
I thought so too.
Seem like they belong, yeah. The rest kind of seem like old EC comics to me or something like that. You know, you have like straight sci-fi, straight western, and then this kind of wartime adventure story. It reminds me so much of like old comic books from the 40s and 50s or something. But then all of a sudden there's a very serious kind of one in the middle. So that did feel like it stood out in that way. Mm-hmm. And of course it's in color, which makes it stand out even more. But
right. Yeah, well, I think I said before 2 years ago that I liked the Bushfire story because it's, you know, really reality based and kind of shows you how they go about fighting these bushfires. What did you think of it?
I felt like that story... It felt like it came from a place of genuine experience, perhaps, or something.
I think he has been involved in this. Yeah,
yeah, that's the way it came across. Like there was a lot of things that seemed very specific, kind of knowledge, and yeah, I thought it was very good, and especially the fact that the hero who's going and saving stuff ends up kind of being a victim himself, which is so often the case, I think, with these kind of things. I mean, I grew up in California, so I'm no stranger to wildfires, and I know exactly how that kind of thing goes. So, but yeah, I thought it was a nice story. Like I said, I feel it was a little bit out of place, and I guess if I can jump right into the critique of it, I personally feel like his black and white art style suits him more. He definitely seems very practiced at that and very like a well-oiled kind of machine as far as the black and white goes. And I feel like the color seemed maybe like he's not quite as used to it. A lot of the color felt to me like it was filling in spaces in, like, to make it in color, but it wasn't like using color as a storytelling device or anything like that. There wasn't any, for example, kind of dramatic shading or lighting or anything like that. And especially the backgrounds. I think sometimes they're kind of like a gradient that don't really match everything else, especially if this is wildfires. Everything maybe should have sort of a red shifted hue or something like that. I don't know. You know what I mean? Like, or have certain types of lighting that makes it look like the light's coming from a certain place, or something that would kind of use the color in the favor of the story. Whereas it felt to me a bit like the color was kind of an afterthought. I guess that's a little bit harsh maybe, but that's kind of how I felt. Whereas in the rest of the stories, I feel like his black and white tones are really, really expertly done. You know, he has very interesting shadows and the balance, black and white balance from panel to panel is excellent. So it seemed to me that he feels more comfortable in black and white perhaps than in color.
Yeah, I think he has done color stuff in some past issues, but it seems like he's mainly stuck with black and white for budgetary reasons, judging from his answer to one of the letters on the letters page in this issue.
Speaking of the letters page, did you notice your name on the letters page?
Yeah, well, I see what he did was the previous episode of Critiquing Comics, when Jason and I talked about it, he has summarized my points and Jason's points as letters.
Yeah, that's kind of. I saw Jason in Oregon. Is that Jason? That's the same Jason, I assume.
Yeah. He's
that's
written
kind of
Jason, Portland, USA, which is a little iffy because there's more than one Portland in the USA. But yeah, Portland, Oregon, USA.
Yeah, nobody's talking about Portland, Maine. Come on.
Right.
Yeah. I noticed that at the end. But so he talks there about budgetary things. I didn't notice that.
So in the first column, someone named Justin Mailer says the stories in the horror issue were all in black and white. I only buy color comics normally because I feel I get better value for money. And Dave's response is simply, color doubles the price of printing.
That idea, I've heard people say before that color is more value. Like, I don't understand that. I really don't. Like, it's, as a consumer, I don't see how you're getting more value when you have color. I don't really know. But in my personal opinion, I think that he does, as you said, it may be a budget thing, but I feel like stylistically the black and white really works for him. I think it's perfect. I wouldn't even mind if the covers were in black and white, to be honest. I guess if it's deterring people from picking up his book, maybe color's worth it. But I think that he has something going with that, especially the fact that it kind of, like I said, is reminiscent of old kind of pulp genre stuff, which is meant to look sort of cheap printing anyway, right? So that, honestly, that's probably my only criticism of the art in the book was the color in the Fire story, because the rest of it I think is really well done. It serves, all of his artwork serves the story very well. I felt like the layout of all of the panels was very, very well done. There's some cool kind of isometric views where you see the characters from kind of a halfway top view and halfway in front, which is a really challenging way to draw. And I also, if you ask cartoonists what they hate drawing, I think 9 out of 10 cartoonists would say horses. Horses and cars.
Yeah.
And he has that kind of stuff in here, right? He has the Western story has a bunch of horses and bulls, and they're coming from all different angles and stuff, and all of it was really well done. So yeah, I think that he definitely is an accomplished draftsman.
Yeah, these last two stories are in a little bit more humorous vein. It felt a little awkward to read them after the sort of horrifying war story, but yeah, I don't know, comic relief.
Yeah.
But yeah, they were interesting. Although that last story is kind of darkly funny.
Yeah, I the idea, the premise of the story is great. Like when you see the UFO crash land, and these guys are saying the gravity is really strong, we need something to, get us out of the atmosphere or whatever. You don't have any idea that they're really small until this little girl picks it up, and it's literally a saucer, like a tea saucer, of a flying saucer.
Yeah, like about a frisbee size.
Right. And then the fact that the boys put it in the skeet launcher to kind of make it go, I guess he throws it, but anyway, that they're shooting like clay pigeons, and it's exactly what the aliens are hoping for, to like get airbound and stuff. Like, the whole premise leading up to that point was great. I didn't expect it. It was surprising. It was kind of a interesting take on the aliens, like UFO kind of story. And yeah, I liked all of that. And then, like you said, the ending itself is a bit of a dark twist that I wasn't expecting, to be honest. I thought, okay, that's how they take off and leave the planet. And the fact that they kind of get their little alien revenge was again very well drawn, very, very well drawn. And yeah, funny, in a dark, twisted kind of, like I said, Mad Magazine, maybe EC kind of way. So I think it worked.
You like cheap comic books, right? Well, I'm Professor Allen, and I talk about cheap comic books on the Quarter Bin Podcast. In every episode, I'll dissect a single comic from my collection, as long as I paid no more than 25 cents for the issue. Forget about $4 new comics that you can read in 4 minutes, or crossover events that can cost $100 to collect. Join me in the Quarter Bin, where even bad comics are a bargain, and good ones are a steal. The Quarter Bin Podcast is part of the Relatively Geeky Podcast Network. Visit us at relativelygeekypodcast.blogspot.com or search Relatively Geeky or Quarterbin Podcast on iTunes. I guarantee it'll be worth every penny.
Perhaps you can tell me, so going on to the other story, the Western story, I was a little bit confused about what the ending was supposed to mean. I know that the guy, he's sort of got himself trapped up a tree. I mean, the bull ran him up a tree, and then he tried to scare the bull by starting a fire, and then the fire got out of control and was going to burn the tree, and so he tried to pee on the fire. But at the very end, like after he fell, what was the conclusion? Like, how did he get out of the situation? I wasn't sure.
Well,
was it that he fell in his pee, or?
Well, so yeah, you see him falling as he's peeing, as the branch is broken off, and then apparently he lands behind the bull, and you know, there are motion lines there, and an impact area, and the word "wump," and the bull is surprised, has a question mark and exclamation mark ahead above his head, and then the bull's running away. And so the story started out mentioning that this guy was dealing with bulls for easy money, and so he says, "Phew, easy money be blowed, I'm heading back to the stock camp."
So I guess he gave up, but it's a very, very funny premise up until that point. The fact that that he's trying to pee out in the tree, the branch breaks, he's peeing on himself, all that kind of stuff. But I wasn't totally clear on the landing. I mean, not the landing, the ending of the story, but
yeah, maybe he
like
just surprised the bull and the bull ran away. It seems like.
Yeah. I guess maybe he was supposed to catch the bull if it was easy money, right? I don't know.
Well, let's see. What did that caption say? Up in the top end of Australia, it is not unusual for a ringer to quit the station life and look for easier money. Cyril was one of these hardy, daring souls who became a buffalo hunter.
Okay, so basically I would say he probably gave up on hunting the buffalo because of all that he went through just to try to get him, right?
Yeah, it wasn't worth the pain.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense. I guess I didn't read it carefully enough. So, yeah, I liked this story, and again, it was very well done, very well drawn. Basically, I liked all the stories. The only thing about the very first one, as I said, I thought that was going to be the entire book, and I, to be honest, felt quite lost when that one was going on, because there's a lot of, they have kind of their own language that they're speaking, sort of. There's all this, I don't know, military jargon, but also just kind of slang and that exists in that world, I assume. So I did feel a little bit lost and wasn't sure if I would be able to keep going through the entire book. And then there's the break when you go to the fire story, and then it comes back. And by that point, I was able to kind of pick up what was going on. So I think it was just me jumping into the middle of a story that I wasn't familiar with, characters and the way they speak and everything. But yeah, that first story as well, the fact that these terrorists, I think their organization is called CLOT.
Right. Combined League of Terrorists.
Okay. Combined League of Terrorists, yeah. So this group or one of the leaders is so obsessed about this knife, and the leader really wants it because it's a knife fit for a leader, and the whole thing on the bad guy's side keeps hinging on this knife, and it ends up kind of giving the victory away to the heroes of the story. And at the end, there's a twist that this knife is essentially, you can buy it at a dollar shop, at a dollar store or whatever, right? Like these cheap chintzy souvenirs. But I really liked that. I thought that plot device was really cool. Like the fact that on one side, you kind of see that the heroes are trying to capture this device, and it's this really important, powerful tool that might give the terrorists the opportunity to win this war or whatever. But that the leader of the terrorists is more interested in this knife, and so it keeps going back and forth between what the heroes are expecting and thinking is going on, and then what's actually going on, which is just that the leader can't stop thinking about this cheap, crappy knife. So I actually really liked the way that was told. That was kind of a cool little story too. So let me give you my opinion here in a nutshell, is that I did not expect to like this, to be honest. Just because the title itself seemed very hard to understand what it might be. It was kind of a generic title.
Amazing Tales.
Yeah. And so, I mean, I might not have picked it up off of the shelf if I saw it, but I'm glad that I read it. And it's these kind of stories that make me happy that I'm doing this show with you, because I probably wouldn't have maybe given them the chance, but once you read them, they're actually, it was a fun little comic, and I enjoyed every story in it. So,
yeah, he's an interesting creator. Mulele and I interviewed him once a few years ago. It seems like I think he kind of might be making some money off of it. It's not really his main income, I don't think, but he just likes doing it. So,
do you happen to know where in Australia he's from?
Ooh, I don't remember right off. I think
okay, because I know that
maybe kind of a smaller town.
Okay. Yeah, I know that there are big, comic scenes in, I know that there's a scene in Melbourne, and I know that there's a bit of a scene in Perth. There must be scenes in, the other big cities like Sydney and Adelaide and stuff like that. I don't know, but I was just curious because I think each of those have their own kind of flavor, each scene. So.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm not sure I don't remember where he lived. I think I knew when we interviewed him, but that was a few years ago.
Yeah, I'll be honest, I'm not very good with Australian geography. It's not a particularly hard country to understand the geography of either. I mean, there's only, 10 states or whatever, if that, but I always get them mixed up, so.
Yeah, the states, I don't remember where they all are. The cities, a lot of them I kind of know. Like, I know Melbourne and Sydney are in the southeast, and yeah, anyway.
Yeah. And Perth's all off on its own, sort of. Yeah, I don't really have all that much to add other than the fact that, like I said, I thought that the stories... what I will say about the dialogue is that it feels like it belongs in that world. So I said that I felt a little bit lost, and I guess that might have sounded a little bit like it was confusing or something. I guess maybe it was, but I didn't mean that in a bad way. The dialogue seems to be very well suited for that universe that it exists in, and everything felt very natural and organic in that space. So I guess that's why I felt lost, because I kind of just jumped in issue 5, and I don't really know.
Yeah, and this story of the soldiers that he calls Dropship 15, I think it is picking up from the previous issue. So a little bit you are getting dropped into the middle here.
Okay, that is a really good name for a team, though. Dropship 15. I like that.
All right. Well, thanks for listening, and thank you, Adam.
Thank you, Tim. It's a pleasure as always.
Follow the link in the show notes to buy David's work in print or digital formats. You can help the Deconstructing Comics family of podcasts by joining us on Patreon at patreon.com/deconcomics, and go to deconstructingcomics.com to connect to us on Twitter, Facebook, or YouTube, to shop on Amazon to support the show, and to find links to subscribe to the podcast. Our theme is from bensound.com. Next week on Deconstructing Comics, a talk with Marta Hudolinska, a Polish-born artist living in Toronto. Her work encompasses a broad range of print and publications, including comics, artist books, zines, relief prints, and risograph prints of original paper-cut art. Coom is also in Toronto, and you'll hear his interview with her next week. Till then, this is Tim, and thanks for listening to Deconstructing Comics.